future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Judy here of Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud. Thank you for tuning in. I love my audience. And of course, for those of you who are new to listening, you're in for a very interesting show tonight. The topic is religious spiritual abuse. I forgot to add the term narcissism here because we're going to be delving into how these two aspects interface, and we're going to welcome you to, I'm welcoming you to please call in. This is a call-in show, everybody. The number is 323-843-2826, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who have been abused religiously, spiritually, controlled, manipulated. We're going to delve into this subject, and I want to start by saying that it's not the belief itself that's the problem. It's not your religion in particular. It's the way people use the religion to control and manipulate that makes it abusive. So to start with the definition of what a religious abuse is, it starts to be administered under the guise of religion, including harassment or humiliation, which may result in psychological trauma. Do we have a call-in already? Wow. Okay. I guess this is a hot topic. Hello, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I'm calling from Canada, and I cannot believe you're bringing up this topic. I've just been watching it the last few days, and I'm really grateful to talk to you. Thank you so much. I even called when you weren't online, so I'm really grateful to talk to you.
Well, I'm glad that you're on air. What is your name, please?
Well, my name, just call me Love.
I'll call you Love. I'll call you Love. Okay. And what part of Canada are you from?
I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
And you know that I used to live in Canada, so Canada's close to my heart.
Are you serious? Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, from Montreal, Canada. Remembering the temperature just about now is getting warmer and the flowers are coming out. And it was a really special time for me living in Montreal. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
So how does this topic... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I came to the realization that I am a narcissist magnet. I don't know if I have codependency or something, but I was actually raised in a cult.
Okay.
A cult where they believe that they were going to be gods when they die. And my mom is a total full-on narcissistic parent. She's never had a connection with her. I was the scapegoat child. I see you're teaching me a lot about narcissism.
Boy, you really have the vocabulary. Have you been watching a lot of these episodes?
Yeah, I've been watching a few, and I realized every single relationship I seem to get into is a narcissist. And actually, I started one again, and he is actually admitting that he was a narcissist. Now he's a believer. Okay. He's a Christian. I'm a Christian. Okay. And so like that would be the flesh. But he still has some narcissistic tendencies coming up. So I know it's a miracle, obviously, if the spirit is telling him like, hey, dude, and he realized, looking back, he was a total narcissist. And looking back, I'm totally a codependent, but I'm still a magnet to them.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit and talk about the mind map, which is how we're going to map this out. And let me just finish my definition and stay with me, because we're going to map out your situation and religious abuse, which of course cults are part of this religious spiritual abuse, most certainly. So the gist of this is that religious abuse may also include misuse of religion for selfish, secular, or ideological ends, such as the abuse of a clerical position. So we have a system here, a religious spiritual system that is actually using people to deliver upon their grandiose needs. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's mind map it, and if you don't mind putting the mind map up, and thank you. And for those of you who are not familiar with the mind map was originally created to heal global disconnect. And it was intended to bring the isms, all of the isms that we splintered off into, Christianityism, Judaism, Hinduism, Muslimism, black, white, capitalism, communism, all the isms, and to create something that was not going to create a clash of the isms, rather something that was going to unite people and create more of a humane society of a global society. That was the original intention. So with that in mind, I went micro on the project, meaning that I decided that in order to heal the global disconnect, we must start with healing human disconnect. So let's mind map narcissism, cults, religious abuse, spiritual abuse, and let's start with the cause, panel 1. Panel 1 is about childhood wounds, and there are 5 of them: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, there is neglect, and there is smothering, control. So how does this relate to narcissism, and how does this relate to a leader of a cult, or a leader of a religious group, or a leader of any sort of a spiritual group that is intending to control and manipulate and profit by positioning themselves to either gain popularity, economic status, and so on? Well, if you look at panel 1, you will see the darkness and the light, correct?
Right.
So with that said, we can see that our light, which is our authentic self, what we came to this world to express, I call it the big I, the self-actualized part of us, gets overshadowed by parents, which I call the cause. And again, I'm going to repeat many times over, this is not a blame system. It is a tracking system of wounds of childhood, how they embed and how they encode in us. So the cause of this entire system gone wrong, which then bleeds into what we're talking about tonight, religious abuse, spiritual abuse, starts with parents who themselves have been injured and who, instead of putting their children as number 1, put themselves as number 1. So what is narcissism? It's a reverse flow. So rather than the parent giving the nourishment, the emotional nourishment to the child and putting that person's, the child's best interest at heart, they're invested in somehow feeding off of that child so that they are enhanced. So how might that relate to you and your relationship, and perhaps your relationship with your religion or the cult that you came out of?
Yeah, I don't know if I should say the name of the cult. Should I? Might as well. It's Mormonism, which Joseph Smith was a false prophet. Anyways, and he was a total narcissist himself. And in that cult, my dad became a member after my parents were married. My mom is not a believer. She's very against God altogether. But my dad was very full on into the religion. And it was all about works, works, works. You had to do all these works. You're on this spiritual treadmill. You're always working to get your way to the kingdom of heaven instead of just receiving God's grace. You know, Jesus is God in the flesh. He died on the cross. And we're saved by grace through faith, not by works, right? And we're all sinners. Of course, you know, a narcissist. You know, I guess we all have some narcissistic tendencies. So, you know, we just are to rest in His grace, and He will never leave us or forsake us, right?
Which is which is very different than the intention of Christ, correct? To be humble, to be a pathway to the light, to be a pathway to God, rather than a pathway to self-aggrandization. I hope I said that right. Self-aggrandization. It's the opposite, isn't it? So, how did your mother and your father get along, being that your father was part of the Mormon Church and your mother was not?
I think she really resented him. But I think that they did share narcissistic tendencies because, you know, how much grandiose would wanting to be a god after you die of your own planet and everything, that's pretty grandiose. But I think that it also took a lot of his time. So my parents were workaholics. And then not only that, my dad had to continuously be a part of this religion. And, you know, us kids were always alone. And my middle sister would beat the living daylights out of me every day.
And by who? Your mother or your father?
No, my middle sister was the one that would beat me up every single day.
Oh, she beat you up. I see. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And brutally, too. Like, it was brutal. And I kept on begging my mom and my parents for help. But it never happened. So there was a lot of trauma in that.
So you would think that if your father was connected to truly an authentic spiritual body of work, that body of work would dictate that child abuse or allowing for abuse within the family would be off the table, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It was crazy. We were acting like total whitewashed tombs on the outside as the inside of the home was totally in chaos and drama and disconnect.
So this is an interesting situation because your mother was a non-believer, your father was a believer. Now, in some cases, and I have certainly seen this in my practice, when one is a believer and the other is not a believer, there's a lot of pressure oftentimes for the non-believer to join in because then the entire family will be ousted from the community. So what happened in terms of the community and how you were accepted or not?
See, that's the thing. I think that what Mormons believe is if my mom was not a believer and married and sealed with him in the temple, which you have to be such a perfect person in order to get into the temple in the first place. But if you're not sealed, then that means he might be going into a spiritual prison until she dies and then gets baptized for the dead. It's like a really messed up religion. It's no grace whatsoever. It's all about self-righteousness, self-works. It's really crazy, but it really messed me up because I seen that I was never going to be good enough. The only way I pleased my dad is if I had a great job and I was making really good money and I bought a house at a young age.
Yes.
With my mom, it was impossible. My mom was, you know, I could say, Mom, can you say anything good about me? And she'll stay silent. She'll just cut me down, rip me apart. It's nasty. And I seem to have always tried to get love from a stone. And 46 years old, you know, and I'm realizing that I got this crazy pattern And I started to say, like, what in the world is going on? Like, why am I attracting these people? And why am I always putting myself out there so much to just get hurt after, time and time again?
So if you look at what you just said in terms of panel 1 wounds, you talked about being physically abused. Yes. You talked about being verbally put down. You talked about I don't want to get too personal, but if you want to volunteer it up or stop me at any time if it's too personal, sexual abuse, neglect, smothering, any of that also in this panel 1 area of wounding?
I would say spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Okay, yeah. So I talk a lot about the double dungeon of darkness in my therapy and also in my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which many of you have read. And if you haven't, it's a complete breakdown of the 9-panel mind map. What happens is that as a result of these childhood injuries, we have primitive reactions that are at first nonverbal, and then they encode into the fiber of our being, and they land in terms of core beliefs such as I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm worthless, and so on and so forth. And so what religious abuse does is it takes the blueprint of a family abuse, and in my opinion, I think that it magnifies it and enhances it, because now you've got the family shaming, blaming, humiliating, locking you in psychological prison, and then you've got the religious system or the cult system or the spiritual system that also bears down and repeats a lot of the familiar blueprint that the family of origin already established. So can you see a parallel between the structure of the family and the structure of the religion or cult or spiritual organization?
Yeah. Absolutely. I could see it with the cult.
Okay.
And that's why I was taken to the end of myself. And that's when I found God without religion. I found him with that love and that acceptance and that grace and just that I could rest in him. It's amazing.
So this is what happens is instead of that authentic connection with the light, the authentic connection with higher power, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's substituted out, and it takes the joy out of the connection, because instead of the connection, the direct connect, now you're connected to this leader, and the leader has an agenda, and the agenda is to control and manipulate and then create a system that's going to aggrandize that particular individual. So instead of enhancing the spiritual well-being of the individual, they're really enhancing themselves. And that's the narcissism, and that's the what the Freud repeat of the family of origins narcissistic core. So it's another form of a what the Freud, which brings on panel 4, 5, 6, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So what you're talking about is that you were able to shine the truth light on the inauthenticity and bypass it and make your own connection with your spirit, with your connection to higher powers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like it's amazing, because I see that my past, it drove me to that place where I just knew it was so wrong. And I just, I learned about forgiveness and the whole bit. The best part is letting go, and that's when God found me. And it's been amazing with him. The trouble is, though, is I'm still attracted, or for some reason, a big magnet to narcissists. However, this guy that I met, I love his spirit, great guy, but when he's in the flesh, when he goes into the flesh, which is not much, it's very rare, he goes into a narcissistic mode, and I go into codependent mode, if that's what I would call it. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm maybe self-diagnosing myself as, because I'm always like, oh, love me, right? I'm like Klingon and wanting to be the fixer and
Yes.
the whole bit. But he had a horrible, horrible nightmare of a past, and so did I. So
Yes.
we both come from two broken roads, but connected by God. And then we're driving in the spirit a lot. And then when the flesh pops up, I'm like, whoa, I can't believe it, that it's still that swing. And the thing is we're going to write a book about it. I was
Beautiful.
thinking I should get
Okay.
started with it, because
okay.
what's the odds of somebody saying they're a narcissist?
You ask a great question. So how come you're able to spiritually connect, and why is it that you're still doing this, what the Freud blueprinting of the past in terms of your relationship dynamics? So the way I see it is that whenever we have symptoms, whenever we're replicating patterns, it points to the cause, which is the original blueprint, and it's simply telling you that you have unhealed childhood wounds. And so what Freud said is that when we have this open psychological file, we want to complete it. We want to finish the psychological business. We want to heal ourselves. So who do we pick to heal ourselves? We pick the herder, or a representation of the herder, to heal ourselves. So if your father was narcissistically inclined, if your mother was verbally abusive and thought only of her own self-interest, then you're going to naturally, according to what the Freud principle, the repetition principle, seek out that herder in order to work through it. That's the intention. The intention is good. You want to work through it. It's just that, as I say in my book, and now my Mind Map video series is out, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, I say again and again that the herder cannot be the healer. The herder cannot be the healer. So you're looking to him to finish your psychological business. And in some sense, he's looking to you to finish his psychological business. It's not going to happen because both of you need a pathway to healing yourselves so that you can be cleaner, not perfectly clean, because whoever is, you can be cleaner so that when you come together as a united couple, you can have more light to share between the two of you. And so as you work through your shadows, as he works through his shadows, you will be less subjected, or you will be less vulnerable to religious abuse, spiritual abuse, human abuse, any kind of abuse, because your boundaries will be better. You will understand your negative core beliefs and how religion or humans or anybody can manipulate them and get you to be at the effect of what they want, their agenda. And as you clean yourself and he cleans himself, you can then truly go into panel number 7, 8, and 9, which is a form of interconnection that is not based on manipulation. It's based on your authentic self and your connection. If we're going to talk about religion, and I do recognize and acknowledge that the mind map is a psycho-spiritual model, if you're connected to your light, your higher power, God, the universe, however you choose to define it, in an authentic way, there is no manipulation there. There's no agenda there. There's no need to idealize somebody or devalue someone. It's truly an interdependent relationship. And for those of you who want to know more about interdependency, I posted a video on independence, healthy independence, codependence and interdependence. And the problem is that many people today do not have the opportunity to have a healthy dependency during their first few years of life because they are not given the psychological nutrients to have a healthy inner core. And those psychological nutrients are eye contact, skin contact, breastfeeding, good enough parenting, a stable home, stable parenting, and so on. So this is a trickle-down system. And again, blueprinted across the board from the family into the religion, spirituality. And if the family's not healthy, then we'll tend toward picking those bodies of isms that replicate the abuse, the control, the manipulation, the narcissism. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, the amazing thing though, because when I look at God now, I don't see him as an ism. Before I was raised in an ism, but now
Understood.
when I look at God, he's got us. Whoever believes in him, no one will ever perish. He has us in the palm of his hand, and he will never fail us. Even if we fall and stumble all over the place and make a mess, he still is there. That's the true gospel, I believe. Otherwise, it's self-righteousness and people always trying to work their way up in their ism.
So I just want to... I want to read a little bit, and then I'll let other people jump on in and ask questions. So a narcissist in the form of a spiritual religious leader is somebody who thumps a Bible or some other religious body of work and wields it as a weapon to destroy others so that he or she can climb on the carcass to elevate themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
This we're definitely Bible believers, but it's preaching about God's grace and how we're secure in him, and how God thinks. That's the true gospel. I know that God's word could be twisted, he warned about false teachers and false prophets. Right.
The point is not. It's
name to control other people that are very dangerous.
Right. You're breaking up a little bit. And please feel free to call the Psychological Healing Center, and we give people free consultations to heal through this type of abuse, whether it's a religious, spiritual abuse, family abuse. We have people on staff who work on sliding scale fee as well. And then we have the Mind Map video series that is out now and you can learn about. So thank you so much for calling in. I want to...
I would love for us to be able to get together and talk to you sometime, online or something. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Reach out.
Email. I'm really looking forward to talking to you more.
Okay. Thank you, love, for calling in. I appreciate your openness. So my pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye. So this is something that I see often in my practice, and I see this as a hot topic. There's another call-in. So hi, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Your name, please? They cut out. Okay, call back. I'll continue along with more information about this type of abuse. I think we're back here. So, hi, You're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Who's this, please?
This is Patty.
Hi, Patty. Very nice to talk to
I'm
you.
calling. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
My first time calling, but I followed Dr. Rosenberg for a little while now. And what do I do? I so much can relate to this, but I have some questions as far as all this religion that I grew up with. And
okay, where are you calling from?
How do I forget? I'm calling from Fresno, California.
Okay, so how do you relate to this subject? And please ask your questions.
Okay.
Are you there?
I'm here, but I'm here.
Okay.
So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time with forgiveness.
Okay.
I grew up with Pentecostal religion,
Mm-hmm.
and I basically started going to that religion when I was 7 because of all the abuse that was happening in my home. So that was my escape.
Okay.
Started going to church,
Yes.
and
When you were
little
7,
did I know what I was. Yes, when I was 7.
who took you?
So little did I. My neighbors.
Your neighbors. And this was something that
My
you
neighbors.
asked your neighbors to do, to take you to church?
Well, they invited me.
I
They
see.
invited me to church,
Okay.
and that was my escape
Okay.
to escape from my home, to go to church to stop the abuse that was going on in my home. But
Okay.
what I want to get to is that the abuse and the abuse I grew up with. I was not enough. The ministers, the pastors, I was never enough. I was always, it left me so spiritually, emotionally, mentally just knocked on my butt. And so now all this has really affected me. I'm 46 years old,
Yes.
and I'm just really like reaching out for help, because how do you forgive those people? Like I have so much against them, but I know I have to forgive them.
Okay, so just a couple of things, and you're welcome to challenge me, and the audience is welcome to challenge me as well. I believe that forgiveness is earned. Now, if you want to forgive just because you don't want to carry the burden, I can definitely understand that. And the person I think to forgive is yourself.
And that's been the hardest thing to do.
Okay, and you have to forgive yourself on the basis that you are not the cause of this abuse. You're not the cause of family abuse. You're not the cause of entering into this religious abuse. You are not the cause of part 1 of your life, because, as I like to say, childhood is a hostage situation. You trust your leaders, you trust your parents, you trust your religious leaders, and those are your people. Those are the people that you admire and idealize and look up to, as it should be in a healthy way. However, some leaders, including parents, are not healthy. And so they don't lead in a healthy way. And as a result of that, you become at the effect of their woundings. And so through the process of the mind map system, you will identify these wounds that you have encountered, that you have lived through, that you have survived, and then you will get to see how you went from, how do they say, the pot to the frying pan? Is that the expression? I forget, but something like that. You went from one horrible situation to another, thinking that you were escaping something, and you went from the double dungeon of darkness of your family into the double dungeon of darkness of the Pentecostal system, correct?
Right. And it's so fit my dad, because my dad was narcissistic.
Yeah.
So that, just like you were sharing earlier about the blueprint of the family.
Yeah.
And then the religious system repeats. I think I understood something like that.
That's
and it's
right.
so true, because my dad once I started going, then I took my mom, my dad, my brothers, my aunts, the whole family was going at one time.
Okay.
And it just so how do I forgive my parents, and do I need to go back to them? Because now I'm at a point where I'm on the spiritual journey.
Yes.
I'm learning to forgive. I'm learning that in order for me to be free, I need to forgive. But it's been hard to forgive myself.
Okay, so
do I have to go back to them? Do I have to go and mingle with them? That's hard too, because when I leave the house, I'm just I'm drained. Just like they suck all the energy out of me.
Okay, so that's the vampiring effect. And I have an answer to your question, and it's a different pathway than most people think. Most people think that the pathway is just to forgive. And the mind map model is a from, through, to model. So you have to go through a process of really letting out the psychological poison, if you will, and cleaning yourself before you can allow yourself to forgive yourself and forgive other people. Don't forget, this is a multi-generational process. So it's not only that your parents enacted this type of wounding upon you, it's most probably so that their parents did, and their parents did, and their parents did, and this is a trickle-down system, and now tag you're it, and it's on you now to break the cycle so that you can heal yourself, and you can pass that healing on to the next generation. So in terms of...
I need to know how to do that, Doctor. I like the young lady was sharing earlier, I attract that. Those are the type of men I'm attracting. So that's what I attract. What's this map system? Tell me what I need to do,
okay.
Or maybe I can
so
reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me, the team. And I'm just going to segue to the Mind Map video series because it's a very simple way for everyone listening to learn the mind map system, partake in the mind map system, and to have all the tools necessary to go from your wounds of childhood and how they embed through the process of letting out the psychological poison and cleaning yourself to rebooting the system. It's a from, through, to model, encoding, decoding, recoding, encoding all the misinformation, the lies, the damage, decoding that so that you can get out of this psychological mess in prison, and then recoding into health. So rather than just blindly forgive, we must cleanse ourselves of the poison so that that forgiveness is authentic. When we feel better about ourselves and when we're cleaner in our psychoperception, I called the wounding, the effects of the wounding leaves us with a cracked lens of perception on life. So that's why we call it, why is she so cracked up? Why is he so cracked up? Because we're believing in misinformation. And that's part of the religious abuse too, is that some leader is taking something that's supposed to be beautiful and pure, and then they are using the words and the information in a very, very disgusting and manipulative way, and it thwarts the entire system. It's the same thing with the family. They're using the position of mother and father and love, and then they're thwarting the whole system so that you end up feeling less than, you end up feeling drained and vampired, and that's really not the intention of a healthy system. So look at this whole thing as a system gone wrong. The whole thing went off the tracks for generations. So now you need a pathway, and that's what the mind map is. It's a pathway to healing. So, for sure, reach out to me, the team, and ask more questions because this is a very complicated subject. Hopefully I've made it easy to digest through this mind map.
You have, Doctor, and I appreciate that. So just to recap, it's the mind map system. That's all on your website.
All on my website, drjudywtf.com. And if you go to resources and you scroll down, you will see Mind Map video series. You will meet the team if you like. You can read the blogs and the articles and so on. We have a beautiful team, sliding scale therapists. You can combine the Mind Map video with the live therapists, and you can control the budget that way. You can watch the videos and at any time just say, hey, it's time, I want to talk to somebody, or not, or just watch it in the privacy of your own home and use the tools. And the book comes with it, a PDF, colored copy of the book comes with this entire Mind Map video series. So yes, you can definitely read up on that. And most importantly, understand that this is not your fault. You are not the cause. You're at the effect of, and you don't have to be under the wheels of this bus. You could definitely get off the ride, become conscious, identify the patterns, identify the core beliefs that you hold as a result of this mess. Core beliefs like, for example, I'm not good enough, I don't matter, I'm not lovable, I'm disgusting, whatever it is that you're holding on to, this has to be dismantled, because if it's not dismantled, then a charismatic leader or a charismatic parent or a manipulative leader or parent or boyfriend or husband or boss or whoever can just hook right into your negative core belief, press your button, manipulate, and bring you down. And when you're down there, they can say, here's the carrot. In order for you to be loved, in order for you to matter, you need to do this, 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 this. Now they've got power and control. You see how sick this is?
Yes, that is. And I'm so glad I'm out of there.
So how do we get our power back? By taking the unconscious, making it conscious, identifying the cause of this, and I don't mean fault, and looking at the entire system that got derailed for multiple generations now, and identifying that so that you can, when you fall into the rabbit hole of life, when you get triggered, which we all do, we can say, I see, I just got triggered in my negative core belief department. So that means now I'm vulnerable. And so now I can identify that negative core belief as misinformation that came from a sick, wounded source, and I don't have to buy into that.
No, very, very, very nice.
Okay, so please reach out. We'll continue this conversation. And for those of you listening, you can go to Dr. Judy WTF and look around on the website, go to resources, and scroll down to Mind Map video series and read all about it. It's a really easy way to do the system. I'm leading the entire plan. I'm going through all the panels, and with it, you're going to get a case study sample, a sample of the peaceful healing dialogue, which I talk a lot about, and even a breakdown of the mind map from the point of view of a child. And I enlisted my beautiful grandson, Alexander, to break down the mind map from a child's point of view. And I did that also to show everybody that this mind map can be understood by any culture, by any age. It's intuitive. Once you understand it, there's an intuitive flow to it. So thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm on
You're
the right
welcome.
track, Doctor. Thank you so much for the show. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, wow, this does seem to be a hot topic. And again, this is a parallel process. Family abuse, religious abuse, parallel process from the pot to the frying pan, from one system gone wrong to another system gone wrong. So here are some signs of this kind of abuse. If you're in a system, whether it be a spiritual system or a religious system or even a family system, ask yourself, are you terrified of not being accepted? Does the narcissist or leader in your life have crazily, ridiculous, implausible spiritual expectations of you? Was there a time when your religious beliefs brought you compassion and peace, but now you struggle with intimacy, insecurity, and comparison? Did you used to find sanctuary in your faith, but you're now left with ceremonies and rituals that are more obsessive compulsive than compassionate and spiritual? How did you get there? So I'm reminding you, how you got there was the blueprint, copying one blueprint from one system to the next. A narcissist or narcissistic leader uses their religious belief to manipulate, control, and dominate you through fear. So if you find yourself afraid instead of inspired, then you know that you're in a system gone wrong. They systematically take the life out of your faith and replace them and place themselves in the center. So this is not a system that's really meant to connect you with your higher power. It's a system that's meant to elevate them. So instead of God, they're replacing themselves. They are using God, they're using the Bible, they're using the religious or spiritual teachings to place themselves as manipulators of that particular body of work. And so this is inauthentic. It's going to collapse. If you plug into it, then you can count on experiencing chaos and breakdowns of defense mechanisms, and eventually feeling, instead of spirited, you're going to feel dispirited. Even those who do not profess a belief in God, such as an atheist, agnostic, or non-believer, or a person who believes in Satanism, can use whatever system they are plugged into as sources of manipulation. Again, it's not the type of belief, but rather how the faith or system is used that makes it abusive. So just a couple of other points, and then if anybody else wants to call in, 323-843-2826. I think we have time for one more caller. And I'm going to read a little bit more about dichotomous thinking, dividing people into two parts, those who agree with the beliefs and those who don't. This is black and white thinking. This is the thinking of people who are not mentally integrated. Interestingly, it's only the leader, the narcissist, who is the judge and jury of who belongs on which side. Your opinion is insignificant. What you might also find is that the narcissist or leader makes fun or belittles and shows prejudice towards others' beliefs. There's this sense that only they are right. Other people, if they don't follow along, are absolutely excluded from being respected, and they're excluded from being a part of. What is very sad is that one of the most dangerous forms of abuse is neglect. And we all know that children who are neglected, babies who are neglected, often die an emotional death and sometimes a physical death. And so when people belong to a religious group or a cult or belong to a family and they don't, quote, follow the rules, they are in danger of being ostracized. So they are in danger of being abandoned by the group. And I think we have another caller. We have time for one more call. And hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. Your name, please?
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian. Where are you calling from?
Michigan.
Thank you for calling in. Do you have a thought or question?
I do. It's definitely on a topic. My background, part of my background is Native American.
Okay.
And basically, between 1850 and 1950, they had a thing called Indian boarding schools, and in Canada, residential boarding schools, where religion was forced upon Native Americans.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was passed down from my grandparents to my mom and to me.
Yeah.
So I spent 26 years in the Catholic Church, and I finally walked away from it.
How did you do that?
Because the Catholic Church could not answer any questions that I had when it came to being Native American. Well,
because they hate independent thinkers.
That would make sense.
Right. How sad. You have a brain.
That was
How
an easy
sad.
one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Been waiting a long time to hear that.
Yeah, and you know, one of the directions I'm going along the theme of this podcast is cross-cultural. We're going more global and cross-cultural.
Yes.
And we all know that there are cultural injuries. And for one culture to impose itself on another culture is just another form of abuse, is it not?
Very much so. And I was the first one out of all my siblings to actually walk away from the Catholic Church, and was not looked at too well for doing that. But I was the one that had enough courage to do so.
And once you did, who ostracized you and who accepted you, and how did it go after the fact?
Well, it was basically, family. There mixed emotions, because I started kind of learning more about the truth of what really happened to my grandparents, who was this religion was forced upon them. They didn't have a choice. And so my grandparents had their kids, and it was the same thing, forced upon their kids, and then forced upon me.
So hostage situation. Hostage situation.
Said, yeah, so it's definitely intergenerational, but this is this was something that was very, very brutal for my grandparents. So much so because she went in at almost 5 years old and was basically booted out at 16.
Oh, so she went into what? She went into the Catholic Church?
She went into an Indian boarding school here in America, in Michigan. There was 2 or 3 of them, and she was sent to the one up northern Michigan that was run by the Catholics. Each boarding school was run by different faiths. Methodist, Catholic, Protestant. She just happened to be at one that was run by the Catholics, and it was extremely, extremely strict and punishable. If she said anything in Native American in our own language, she was brutally punished.
So this takes it to another level. Not only is there a religion here that is dictating and being used, now the government, right, is involved in reinforcing this level, and not only reinforcing, actually administering and dictating.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, the government was like, well, we need to do something about the Indian problem.
The Indian problem,
and that's when the churches came in and said, well, let us save their souls.
How sweet of the churches to take care of the Indian problem. And what happened to all of your native customs and languages? Of course, I'm being sarcastic. You know that, right? Okay, so what happened to your native language and the native customs and the art and the rituals and the medicine and the stories? What happened to all the richness of your culture within that system?
It has almost completely disappeared.
Yeah, this is a very
because of what happened, because of what the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church, and the Protestant Church did to thousands upon thousands, not just here in the U.S., but also in Canada.
So the takeaway here for those of you listening is that if something is forced upon you, if it feels like a hostage situation, if it feels like a coercion, if there are dire consequences, if you don't, then run if you can. And congratulations to you, because you did. And you have the courage to do so. And of course, there may have been some horrible consequences to you. And in the long run, what you did is you carved out a pathway to your own freedom and hopefully to the freedom of your next generation. So now, do you have children?
I have 2 children, and I know I spoke with you before. We do plan on coming out to see you.
I remember you.
Fall.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
And we have a lot to talk about and a lot to share. The church did a lot of damage to my grandparents, and in turn, they did massive damage to my parents and uncles and aunts, and in turn, they did massive damage to us.
Well, now that you are a free soul, you can start teaching your children the language, if you remember any of it, or I'm sure you can find books and material about your culture, and then you can bring back the medicine, the healing, the rituals, the wisdom of the Native American culture. And so,
well, I actually went to a school for 3 years and almost immersed myself into the few people that actually still retained it, because not all Native children were sent, but most were. But there were a few that were actually left with their parents to actually take care of the parents. But so there was, so my children always gave them the choice. You know, you can choose this way, that way. It is your choice. It's your free choice. And they have chosen not to go the church way.
Okay. Well, congratulations to you. I think it takes a lot of courage to carve out your to reclaim your authenticity and then teach that to the next generation and put yourself at risk with people who may judge, blame, shame, criticize, and ostracize you. So I can't wait to meet you and your family. You're so welcome at the Psychological Healing Center. Give me some heads up so that I know when you get into town. And I'd be delighted to meet all of you.
I just wanted to let you know and remind you that you talk about, you know, when you're in a double dungeon, the dark place, and all you need to do is open up the door. Well, when I opened up the door, I found you.
Aww.
And I see you as the light. And I've talked to you much about my daughter and son, and all three of us are on board. So we're looking forward to it.
I'm really honored, and thank you so much. It's so beautiful of you to say that, and it means a lot to me. And thank you.
You're very welcome, and I appreciate everything that you do and the gift that you share with the world.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for all of you for calling in. Your questions are wonderful, thoughtful, courageous, and everyone who strives to get out of that double dungeon of darkness takes risks. And to expose yourself to the truth and really leave the lies and the misinformation to the roadside, so to speak, takes a lot of courage, because whenever we unlock ourselves from an old system, even if the system is one that is dysfunctional, it still hurts to leave the comfort zone. And a lot of people, I see this every day, they do have the courage to leave their comfort zone, and sometimes they have to break down before they do, and hopefully for those of you listening, you can be proactive about it. So thank you everyone for calling in, and the new improved version of the Be the Cause book is going to be uploaded tomorrow and hopefully available on Amazon and through my website in Kindle form and in paperback. And the Mind Map video series is available now, and it does come with a beautiful, colorful version of the new, improved Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect book. And with that said, I'm going to jump quickly to Shrink That Tune. And today's lyrics are by Opiate. And I'm going to read this quickly because I know we only have about 3 minutes. Choices are always a problem for you. What you need is someone strong to guide you. Deaf and blind and dumb and born to follow. What you need is someone strong to guide you. Like me, like me, like me. Of course, representing the narcissistic leader. If you want to get your soul to heaven, trust in me. Right. Watch out who you trust in. Don't you judge or question. You are broken now, but faith can heal you. Just do everything I tell you to do. Deaf and blind and dumb and born to follow. What you need is someone strong to guide you. Can you hear the manipulation? This is perfect for codependents and people pleasers. They will buy into the system. Deaf and blind and dumb and born to follow. Let me lay my holy hand upon you. My God's will becomes me. When he speaks through me. Wow, that's a narcissistic statement. He has needs like I do. We both want to rape you, and that's what it is. It's that vampiring effect. You know you're in the wrong system when you're being vampired. So I'll just skip to the bottom because we're just about out of town. If you want to get your soul to heaven, trust in me. Now don't you judge or question. You are broken now, but faith can heal you. Just do everything I tell you to do. He has needs like I do. We both want to rape you, meaning the leader and this false god that is redefined through this manipulative, narcissistic leader. I thank you, everybody, for listening. Call in, and please feel free to sign up for a free 15-minute consultation with me or one of the team members. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.